The Legend of Dave the Villager. Chapter 1. The Inn. "I'm sorry, lad. I don't think I heard you properly, said the innkeeper. "What was that word again?" "Potatoes," said Carl. "Potatoes. Boil 'em, smash 'em, stick 'em in a stew. You know, potatoes, the greatest food in the world." "No, I don't think we have any of those," said the innkeeper, "but I'll check with the wife." "You do that," said Carl, "and make it quick." The innkeeper disappeared back into the kitchen. Dave and his friends were sitting at a table in the inn. A few other travelers were sitting at other tables, including a couple of wandering trader cowmen in red robes and a group of cowmen warriors in iron armor. "So what's the plan now, chaps?" said Porkins. "Are we going to give Herobrine a darn good thrashing?" Dave got Porkins and Steve up to speed, telling them that Herobrine was now free, that he was immune to splash potions, and that he was heading across the ocean to find them. "My father will not be easy to defeat," said Spidroth. "If he is so powerful that potions don't even stop him, I'm not sure what hope we have." Dave tried to take what Spidroth was saying seriously, but it was difficult when her words were coming out of the beak of a chicken. Unlike the others, she was sitting on the table, rather than on the benches. As she was so small. "I think we should destroy him," said Carl. "We should obliterate him and make him suffer." "Obliterate him and make him suffer. Well, I guess that would be no more than Herobrine deserves," said Dave. "Herobrine?" said Carl. "I was talking about what I'll do to the landlord if he doesn't have any baked potatoes." The nether portal had brought Dave, Carl, Spidroth, Porkins, and Steve into a snow biome in the middle of a blizzard. At first, Dave had seemed worried. They might be completely off course, maybe even back in their own continent. But then they found the inn and could see through the windows that it was full of cowmen. The inn was in the middle of nowhere and had snow golem guards outside. But they weren't like normal snow golems with the snowman bodies and pumpkins for heads. They had melons for heads instead. When Dave and the others had tried to get in the front door, the melon golems had surrounded them. The landlord had come out, and once he'd seen them, they weren't a threat. They called off the melon golems and invited them in. "I'm afraid we don't have any of those potatoes." "Potatoes?" said the landlord, coming from back in the kitchen. "The wife and I had never heard of them, I'm afraid." "Do you know how long it is since I had a baked potato?" Carl roared, standing up to his full height in his netherite golem suit so that he towered over the poor landing. "Do you?" "Sit down, Carl," said Dave. "The man can't help if he doesn't have any potatoes." Suddenly the doors burst open and the melon golems all swarmed in. "Boss under attack," said one of the golems in a robotic voice. "Defend boss." The golems all began to spit little black seeds at Carl. "Pew, pew, 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 pew." "Arg," said Carl, and his face was pelted with melon seeds. "Stop it." "All right, lads, at ease," said the landlord. The golems immediately stopped their spitting and stood to attention, with their stick arms by their side. "Now go back outside. I'm fine," said the landlord, and the golems all slid back out the front door, closing it behind them. Sorry about that, lad. The landlord said to Carl, those boys are very protective of me and my wife. Of my wife and I. We get a lot of attacks from bone spiders up here. So they're always on high alert, said Carl, sitting back on the bench. What's a bone spider? Asked Dave. They're like spiders, but a bit more bony, said the landlord. Their skull and their rib cage is exposed, and they attack by spitting out shards of bone. They're horrid things. I don't know, bro. They sounded pretty cool, said Steve. Now, said the landlord, what can I get you all to eat? Baked potatoes, said Carl, crossing his arms. Grow up, creeper, said Spinrod. I'll grow up when your face grows up, said Carl. What does that even mean? Said Spinrod. What does your face even mean? Said Carl. Quiet, you two, said Dave. What do you have? He asked the landlord. Well, said the landlord, we've got cooked mutton, cooked rabbit, melon, beetroot, oh, and some lovely chicken. No chicken, please, said Dave, looking awkwardly at Spinrod. Oh, and cooked pork chops as well, said the landlord. No pork chops either, said Dave, looking at Porkins. Just bring us everything that isn't pork and chicken. Righty-ho, said the landlord. Oh, one more thing, said Dave. Where are we? My friends and I were traveling west from a place called Cow Village near the coast, but we got lost. Oh, you're quite far from Cow Village now, said the landlord. You're near Spectrite City now. Yes, bro, Spectrite City, said Steve. That's where I got this cool armor from. Steve was still wearing his rainbow armor. Yes, I could see that, said the cowman landlord, giving Steve a funny look. You do know that Spectrite is about the same strength as iron, don't you? It looks good, but not that great. Steve's face fell. What are you talking about, bro? He said. In Spectrite City, they told me this armor was the best. They said it was stronger than diamond. They told me that if you could make armor out of obsidian, this would be even stronger than that. I don't know what to tell you, lad, but Spectrite is rubbish, said the landlord. Then he left them and went back through the doors into the kitchen. I can't believe it, bro, said Steve. This is the worst thing that ever happened to anyone here. Excuse me, said Spinrod. Roth, I think turning into a chicken is slightly worse. I guess they're both pretty bad, said Steve. I take it you two have never met before? Dave asked Steve, and Spinrod. I don't know, said Steve. I met lots of chickens before. It's hard to tell them apart. Fool, roared Spinrod, jumping up and slapping Steve in his face with her wings. I am no more chicken. I'm Lady Spinrod, daughter of Herobrine. Oh, Herobrine, said Steve, pushing Spinrod off of him. I've heard of that dude. Apparently he looks just like me. So he must be pretty handsome. Why does Herobrine look like you, Steve? Dave asked. Do you know? No idea, bro, said Steve. I guess he just caught me by awesome looks. To answer your question, no, I've never met Steve before, said Spinrod. He looks exactly like my father, though. The landlord came over then, with plates piled of high with food. Yummy, yummy, said Porkins, grabbing a big beetroot and biting into it. The red juice dribbled down his chin. You look like you enjoyed that, grinned Dave. I was trapped in a gold room for a month with nothing but a few scraps of raw beef, said Porkins, his mouth full of beetroot. I don't even eat meat that very much, so that wasn't a great experience. Now that I'm free again, I'm going to eat all the lovely food I can. Dave was glad to have Porkins back with them, even after all he'd been through. The pigman was still in great spirits. It seemed that nothing could get him down for long. Spinrod was far less happy. It had only been a day since she and Dave had kissed and turned back into a chicken. But it seemed like a lifetime ago to Dave. Spinrod has barely spoken to him since, and she seemed angrier than ever. I guess I wouldn't be very happy either if I turned into a chicken, Dave thought to himself. Dave was still wearing The sun was starting to go down by the time they finished their food. So they decided they decided to stay the night in the inn. The innkeeper gave them his biggest room, but when he showed it to them, Dave noticed there was only 4 beds. Could we get another bed put in here? Dave asked. I have a spare one on my backpack if you need it. Why do you need 5 beds? The innkeeper asked, looking confused. There are only 4 of you. The chicken can stay in our coop with the others. How dare you? Spinrod said to the innkeeper. I will peck out your eyes. I'll sleep in the coop, Dave said to the innkeeper. It's no bother. While Carl, Steve, Porkins, and Spinrod stayed in the room, the innkeeper led Dave to the chicken coop at the side of the inn. At first, Dave had trouble seeing the chickens in the darkness of the coop, as they had dark blue feathers and gray legs and beaks. Are all those chickens meant to look like that? Dave asked. They're midnight chickens, said the innkeeper. Quite rare. My wife used a bit of chicken breeders back in the day, although we're sold off all our breeds. You know, she paid a lot of money for that talking chicken of yours. She's not for sale, grinned Dave. Pity, said the innkeeper. The Chicken World Champions are taking place in Spectrite City this weekend, and a talking chicken would be sure to win. Yeah, I can't. You sure I can't convince you to sell? We could give you a lot of emeralds. Sorry, said Dave. Suit yourself, smiled the innkeeper. Good night. Once the innkeeper was gone, Dave took a tiny bed from his backpack and placed it down on the floor, where it instantly grew full size. Well, good night, Dave said to the chickens. Then he crawled under hid the bed covers. As soon as he fell asleep, Dave began to have nightmares. He was being chased by Herobrine through the darkness. I'm getting closer, Herobrine was screaming at him. I'm catching up with you, Dave. I'm catching up. Dave, Obi, wake up. Dave woke up to find Porkins staring at him, shaking at him. Carl and Steve were standing behind him. Carl wasn't wearing his golem suit, and he barely came up to Steve and E. Daylight was streaming in through the windows of the coop, and dark blue chickens were looking at him curiously. What's going on? Said Dave, wiping the sweat from his brow. What's the matter? It's Spinrod, said Porkins. She'd been kidnapped. Chapter 2.